All right. Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks out there. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and welcome to the channel. For those who do not know, this channel is broadcast live on Twitch, YouTube, and our own Discord server. So please join in the show live there if you wish, or check out the show later. Uh, Thanks for being regulars there, guys. Thank you very much. Today is Trope Tuesday. Tuesdays have been a grab bag for quite a while, but uh, Trope Tuesday is kind of dedicated to taking the tropes of whatever we talk about and kind of breaking them apart. It's kind of what we do all week long, but we have to come up with some kind of name for a Tuesday, right? And this cutting class series, we're taking Dungeons and Dragons classes, taking them apart, putting them back together, coming up with creative ideas on how to use them, and just basically, shaking them apart, getting the dust, getting the cobwebs off of our own brains about thinking about them. And I thought we would do that, in going into November and such. And this week we're talking about the monk. And yesterday on Monster Monday, we did try to destroy quite a number of very stereotypical tropes, but I thought we would go a little more in depth into many of the tropes that we have when we think about monks, especially in regards to Dungeons and Dragons, and then come up with some new ideas on them, or essentially flip the script on it. Okay, so hey, a night girl. Who happened to hang around. Who is it? Drop Dice, Chris Willem. I saw you over there. Don't think I didn't see you. No, I'm joking. We're all a very small family of content creators, and I whatever. We're all what are we all, kissing cousins or something? Abtab and Fistful and all those guys over there. Yeah. So today, talking about monks, I thought we would talk about we'll go over, let me go over a little bit of what we talked about yesterday, because it does have to do with some context, in a sense that the term monk the is very, sometimes we get caught up in semantics about things rather than the subject matter at hand. Monk, much like many of the phrases that we use in Dungeons and Dragons, tends to be hyper specific and culturally, we are culturally funneling ourselves. And I'm thinking, yeah, we are. We are a night girl. We sure are. Cameron says, remember the 5th of November. Remember the 5th of November. The gunpowder treason and the plot I see now. Reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. You think you think V is a monk or a fighter? Ooh, that's a good one. I'm going with monk. I'm going with I, I I'm thinking that his prowess is a step above just being able to. Well, I don't know. Wow, that's thin line there. Now you make me think about it. Oh, racking my brain. Hmm. Yeah. I'm with TNS there. I'm with Tired No Sleep. Guy Fawkes was a rogue. Yeah. I'm going with that. Yeah. Matter of fact, there's probably, despite what people may call themselves, I'm sure there's a lot of different crossover. Like I'm sure. Like yesterday, we were talking about people from around the world, like gladiators and Spartans. I can imagine many of them being a monk styled combatant. Those that um, I'm thinking of the rapier dirk fighters. I don't know what would you call them, like Three Musketeers styled fighters and such. And I think the problem, of course, like we said, historically, the monk was brought over into Dungeons and Dragons very early in the mid 70s because of the invasion, the influx of um, Eastern style martial arts into the United States, and it was just a method. They basically just maybe awkwardly lifted it up and just placed it into Dungeons and Dragons without any context. And now that the word monk has, like the word monk, paladin, warlock, these all have connotations of history to them, as opposed to using, say, some other terminology like martial expert or um, I don't know, paragon of physical perfection, or some other phrase or terminology or something like that that didn't have any specified cultural baggage to it, because we know that in our own history, every culture since the beginning of time, since we start picking weapons, probably had some form of specialist in terms of their own fighting styles. And even just the concept of chi or ki or chakras or whatever varies by culture to culture and region to region throughout history. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Cam says, yeah, very true. But his fighting style is artistic. It feels like martial arts to me, even if it's Western martial arts. I think he has some levels in in Monk. Yeah, and remember, some of that could very well be uh, narrative, which is another strangeism when it comes to the monk, because sometimes in order for us to shoehorn the monk into our gaming worlds, we have to reskin a lot of it, and I think it's unfortunate that we have to bother taking the taking the skin off and then putting the skin back on. I don't know why I'm thinking of chick baked chicken breast thinking of that, but anyway, yeah, it's unfortunate we have to take the skin off and then reskin it into, like, for example, the idea of the street brawler or the bodyguard or the bouncer, or the a lot of times we think of, in order to shoehorn the monk into Dungeons and Dragons, we have to think of the, like, elite guard type of individual. But I'd like to talk about some of the reasons why monks would exist in the first place and some of the fighting styles, as myself and many of the individuals out there who've ever practiced any kind of martial arts, um, a large part of that is the history of those martial arts. Yeah, Cam says, I also consider Robert Downey Jr.'s Sherlock Holmes character to have monk classes. Yes, 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 yes. That is a great example. Although now I'm not going to argue that he wouldn't. Some would say that it could be a description of what a, say, an inquisitive rogue type things. Yep. But yes, absolutely, because of the, if you ever watch the movies, you'll see that is I'm going to say obsessive compulsive nature has him replay some of these combat actions over and over again in his mind before it ever happens. I suppose you could do the same thing with Denzel Washington in the Equalizer movies as well, especially that first one when he goes into the room with the, I don't know, Eastern European dudes that are, the human trafficking and whatnot. But yeah, I think a lot of that has to deal with splitting the hairs of, am I a fighter who is just really good with weapons, and then some other headbutts, elbows, punches, and kicks or something, or am I a monk? And one of the tropes of monks, of course, are monasteries, places where they train and learn these various martial arts techniques. But I would contend that a lot of times those places, especially, let's say you go with a fighting schools from um, ancient Japan and the samurai or something, or what are some other types of school? The circles, the rota for capoeira in South America. From a lot of martial arts have developed. It didn't. just develop organically. A lot of martial arts develops because of a reason. And so why do monks exist in your world if you want to include them in your world? What was it? What was the impetus to get these people to harness their skills to such a high level? And a lot of that has to do with war or circumstance. For example, capoeira has historically been known as a martial art that developed because of slavery, and you needed, since you couldn't use your hands, or there was a good chance your hands were shackled, you had to have the ability to use your legs and acrobatically move through dense foliage, and using your legs and feet to leg trip and take people down. And so a lot of it is like handstands and flips and in tight spaces and such. Whereas another version of a slave-based martial, well, another slave-based martial art is comedic hands, known as shackled hands. And an individual created a martial art based around, well, your hands being shackled, and all the martial arts moves are very indicative of the wrists either being um, tied together or close in form. So there's a lot of like double arm strikes, elbows, and grappling techniques and things like that. Another martial art that was created from prison, known as 52 blocks. It is an extreme form of dirty boxing, complete with headbutts and eye gouges, and strikes to the groin and throat punches and all that kind of stuff. Open palm strikes to the chin and behind the ear and whatnot. So martial arts tends to, I think, classically developed from some kind of historical context. Samurai were known during their war periods of time. They were, great combatants. When war is over, what do? Well, a bunch of people that know how to fight get together. They start. Um, they there's a desire to spread their knowledge, and to um, a release valve often has to deal with when in the crucible of battle, right? And that those release valves deal with a lot of physical competition and conflict, and the best way to do that is to train yourself, or measure yourself against someone else who moves the fastest, who's the strongest, who's the most accurate, who has the highest endurance, and then it moves on in there into the intellectual parts of it. Who has the most knowledge of combat techniques? Who has the greatest natural ability to do a thing? And then who are the greatest teachers, who are the most influential when it comes to teaching those arts? So a lot of that, there's usually a lot of historical context with martial arts. And so, yeah, if you want to dump it into your game, no problem. And mind you, monks are divisive in the Dungeons and Dragons community. There are many people that are basically just say straight up no. Like, no, there's no monks in my world. And a lot of that has to do with a lot of the baggage. Someone wants to play a uh, a pseudo Viking game. I'm thinking of Iscloth right now by Lloyd Collins. Monks, no. Historically, no. No. So Cameron says, that's very sad, but so badass. Such a beautiful martial art coming out of defying something that horrible. Makes it even more beautiful to me. I didn't know that about capoeira. Yeah, I don't know if it's ever been proven that the art of capoeira came directly from shackled hands and slavery, but it's like one of these. It's a myth that holds so much. It makes so much sense that no one has dissuaded it from that purpose, because it's all been passed down through song and dance and word of mouth, right? And because well, the other part of it, which is this is kind of a cool thing historically, in reality, and you can kind of put this in your games and such too, is that capoeira was practiced underneath the eyes of the plantation owners, as if it was song and dance that the slaves were blowing off steam for the day so they could go back to work for another, 10, 12 to 14-hour day working in the fields. So while you may see people playing music and dancing and such, there is a method to the madness. So a lot of that had to do with hiding it underneath the eyes of the plantation owners. And for quite a while in South America, capoeira was illegal. Now it's embraced as a historical monument to their culture, but at a certain time, yeah, it was. Another thing that happens with martial arts historically is, you know, I made this comment before, in real life, that the reason why guys are testosterone filled is because there's no more dragons to kill, right? And so sometimes the challenge can be an endeavor unto itself. So much like the Olympic Games, when one person learns how to pick up a rock and throw it, they'll want to challenge themselves against somebody else who can pick up a rock and throw it, and who can throw it the farthest. And you can take a look at any strongman competitions, right? There are we we as human beings love to measure ourselves against each other. It's the idea of running away from a monstrous evil. It's like, hey, I don't need to be the fastest. I just need to be faster than you. And I think as a defense mechanism for survival, we as human beings like to know that we are better than our peers, because in survival that means that we are the ones who will survive longest, right? If I can run faster than you, that means that I can catch prey or hunt better or escape danger or appear, we like to puff our chests out for mating reasons, right? Animals do it, we as humans do it too. We want to appear that we can take care of, we have many resources, or we can acquire those resources, which is why someone who has lots of money likes to maybe flaunt it, because they think they can get an appropriate mate, because I can look at me, I'm a resource gatherer, as opposed to someone who has no resources, right? And so martial arts is, fighting skills tend to develop from there, and especially in a brutal fantasy world, I can imagine that. And so I think it's just another development, um, moving beyond that. Like, hey, we could fight with swords and staves all we want, but maybe we can take this to the next level. And so I think martial arts can develop very much from that as well. Cameron says, I remember hearing it was illegal when I was a kid. I never knew why. It was because the practice of capoeira was illegal because it was literally a hidden martial art. It was like it is, hey, I'm in leadership and you people are practicing something that can theoretically overthrow me, and I'm doing that with air quotes because it's like, I mean, really, are you that scared? But yeah, that's why it was illegal, because it was practicing a lethal martial well yeah, a lethal martial art, under the noses of the people in power. It made them look stupid. Embarrass someone and make them look stupid. They will strike back at you. As a matter of fact, if you take a look on YouTube, you'll notice that there are even practices of capoeira using grabbing razor blades between their toes and using the razor blade in their feet so that they could use that instead of being able to use it with their hands, because their hands were shackled. Where it came from that. Andrews Martin says it's like an armored version of knights. Let's teach these young bored kids some kind of exercise, and in the meantime, some ethics and valor, so they don't go around punching people. At least in some cases. Oh, hell's yes, yeah. Martial arts is that. It's a two-pronged system, right? It's the we're going to give these quiet, unassuming, cowardly kids some form of strength and valor and courage. At the same time, we're going to take these violent, chaotic, unrestrained, wild kids and teach them some kind of balance and restraint and honor or something, right? So martial arts kind of comes at these things from two levels, where it's it even gets to the point that those who become the greatest skilled know they are so skilled that they no longer want to use it or brag about using it any longer. And I think sometimes because the term monk is so very wrapped up in this stereotype of like Shaolin monks that we sometimes lose the purpose where yeah, maybe in this world there's enough time and energy to teach people to fight well. Like could imagine a bunch of knights going out into the battlefield for generations, and then after a time someone learned that, you know what, hey, here's a way to, trip your enemy and disarm them, and then, oh, here's this other thing where we want to ascend our, not just our bodies but our minds as well, so that we don't go around punching and killing each other, because it's, you know if we keep killing each other we're going to have less people. So maybe there's another way we can both capitalize on our skills and increase our skills without then murdering each other in the process. So heck, even the idea of exercise itself seems to be a bit of a thing that's not necessarily Euro fantasy fantasized. A lot of martial arts movies dealt with the training montage, right? We see this in a lot of boxing movies where you get the training montage. Martial arts movies, you get the training montage. There are military movies where you get the training montage, and we really don't see. I guess it's really strange to think of us as like a bunch of like elves or like halflings or something, going on a run, or like gnomes lifting weights or something, or whatever. But I'm sure every culture has had some form of physical exertion to get people in shape to do a thing, to be better at the thing that they're doing, whether it's archery and shooting at targets, or heck, just going on runs just to run, right? For example, although this isn't a martial art, for example, there in Africa, there are the Kenyan runners who have been known to dominate marathons. And a lot of the kids it's because, lack of communication and dirt roads and stuff. So what happens? Well, get a bunch of barefoot kids here. I got a message. Here's some cash. Go to the store. Hey, I need to tell my neighbor something, and they're far away. Go run and let them know. And what would happen? The kids would start running, and then one kid's like, I bet I can run faster and longer than you can. And then eventually, as an adult, it's like it becomes a normal thing, and all of a sudden you get these Kenyan runners. So I think in Dungeons and Dragons, I I wished I would try to embrace the martiality. That's not a word. um, of where the martial arts is developed from, especially in a historical sense. Maybe there have been a number of wars, and remember, monks kind of like skirt the idea of being like religious as well as mystical. So they kind of bump up against wizards. They rub up against clerics. They are in the same classroom as rogues in many ways, and of course as fighters as well. So them being an offshoot, maybe the monk tradition isn't separate. Maybe it's just a slight offshoot of what already exists. For example, I could imagine in an urban setting, maybe there's like assassins and pickpockets and thieves, and maybe monks are like the equivalent of like parkourists or something, free runners in an urban setting. It's like they not only can they fight, but they gather together and they run across rooftops and through back alleys, and they send messages to each other. And then when they confront each other in these back alleys, maybe they have these. Maybe it's like the Musashi Flex from what's the book series? The Man Who Never Missed, Steve Perry. Oh, the Matador series. Anyway, you guys may not know about that. Anyway, there's an underground fighting technique called the Musashi, not technique, but a competition called the Musashi Flex. and these people confront each other in back alleys to fight each other, and it's like they keep score of who's the best at what they do and how they do it. And the Musashi flex, I'm bringing this back up, the competition between each other, much like maybe there's the competitions grow as to who can outrun the police or the authorities. uh, nascar NASCAR came about through outrunning the police because of prohibition, trying to get alcohol from one place to another. So competition seems to be a big thing. I'm surprised for so long that monks haven't been ones who have embraced, like I said, like um, gargoyle style or manticore style, or uh, I don't know, treant style martial arts or something. Like I'm surprised there aren't dryads teaching martial arts out in the woods or something, and that there aren't martial arts styles like, tiger, or like tiger crane, or boy, my brain just disappeared. On a mantis style, monkey style, drunken style. Like I'm surprised there isn't a version of that in Dungeons and Dragons related to the Dungeons and Dragons monsters, like Displacer Beast styled martial arts, or Blink Dog style martial arts, or something where an individual has watched something strange or bestial out in the wild and come up with a number of techniques that kind of mimic the acts and motions of it. Now, considering the other classes, lots of us love the the Eastern flavor of martial arts. So on the other hand, we could take Dungeons and Dragons and flip it all the way over into the wuxia style of combat, and I think every other character class kind of fits into that style too. Barbarian and barbarian, paladin, sorcerer, all those fit into a martial arts style too. If you wanted to flip the script on it, and maybe we'll do that tomorrow in World Building Wednesday. Maybe so. Um, Cameron says, personally, I prefer Soul Calibur and Guilty Gear, but I can let this go. But I can let this go on any longer without bringing up Street Fighter. Yeah. Hadouken! Right? Yeah, Soul Calibur, perfect example of like a mixing of the two. What was a great one? Of course, you can't, you got to do Mortal Kombat. There's also, ooh, oh, no, my brain's farting on it. It was an arcade game. I'll think of it. Hopefully, I'll think of it before I get back to. Yeah, Soul Cal. You know what? And honestly, um, it's martial. I'm sorry. We are role playing in a fantasy realm, right? We like to be dead or alive. Yep, there you go. Yeah, yep. And sometimes I think we might get a little bit too into the weeds. I think sometimes when it comes to what is or isn't martial arts, because a lot of the martial arts, like if you talk about like Dragon Ball Z or something, really isn't martial arts. It's just flavor. Um, Dragon Ball Z is basically superheroes wrapped around a thing, right? Like some people, I've heard people make the try to make the argument that how do you do Avatar in Dungeons and Dragons? And I'm like, you you just do it. It's not there. You don't need to change any rules. You just do it. It's us. It's the semantic problem, right? Gaspers is like, this is too weird seeing you without your glasses. Yeah, I'm a gentleman of a certain age, not to get a little too personal, but I'm going through some changes, and one of those changes happens to be diabetes. So like I'm on metformin, and I'm getting like I've got to watch out for my sugar. But for those who know about diabetic side effects, is that you get like neuropathy from it and things of that nature. Now, it affects the small blood cells and such, and part of that affects your vision. And for some reason, my vision is changing, which in a weird way is getting better now that I'm sitting in front of the computer. It's altering, let's put it that way. It's not getting better, but I can see better without my glasses on, which sitting at the same distance, having done this for like hell, like 4 or 5 years or something. So it's weird. It's just really weird. Gasper's Two Souls is like seeing a DM without the whole cover. Hiding the shit behind the things. Yep. I don't have my. As a matter of fact, this is my DM screen right behind me. Literally. No, but the you guys brought up yesterday about the idea of the blind monk, and one really cool thing about like um monks and ascending to a higher level of combat is like there is this line where you get like, okay, first I'm a master of like battle, like I can fight with my hands and fists and elbows, and I can fight with weapons, and I'm like this whirlwind of ability. And then you go another higher level where it's like, not only am I really good with weapons and my physical body, but my internal spiritual ability makes me even better. I can feel my enemy and where they're moving. I can affect the flow of energy around me, however you want to describe it. And then there's like a level just above that one where it's like, hey, at a certain point, I don't even need to punch or kick you anymore to take you out. If anyone remembers from, if you're an old grognard, you remember from the Kung Fu Theater, 36 Chambers of Death, the Master Killer, when the young acolyte goes, because he, of course, he wants to learn all the martial arts, and there's 36 chamber, well, there's 35 chambers, and he goes to the 35th chamber and runs into it, and there's a bunch of people chanting, and he's like, I want to learn martial arts, and he's like begging them to learn. There's a bunch of blind monks just like chanting and knocking on bells and stuff, and one of them just like takes their hand up. He's, of course, 50 feet away or something, and just like takes his hand gently and just like pushes it, and of course he knocks the guy back with like a telekinetic kind of, uh, uh Hadouken chi push, and of course he runs out of there and then goes back to chamber number one and starts mastering those martial arts. And so there is a like a parallel where the monk goes from like, oh, I'm like a fighter aside and a rogue aside. Oh, wait a minute, I've moved up to like the bard, the bard cleric aside, and now I've moved up into like the wizard sorcerer warlock aside, right? And so a lot of that. Yeah, yeah, like Cameron says, Toph, she can feel your movements through the ground, but she is blind in sand. Ooh, think about blinded characters. Yeah, we talked at one point. We even talked about handicaps in games, and my position on ableism and handicap in games. It's either don't change anything, or the person doing it agrees to both get the benefits and the limitations of it. Right? Like if you want to play a blind monk in a game, just say your character's blind, but don't change any of the rules. Just my character's blind, but I have the ability to, air quotes, see the world around me or something like that. Now you could start making up rules, but then you get into you start heading down a rabbit hole of like of things like Andrus Martin says, I have a blind monk piece. I have had a blind monk PC once. He had 5-foot blind sight and a ton of ranks in listen, 60-foot movement and the run feat. He got in a chase in the forest, reflex saves each turn to evade trees. I love that idea. So yeah, you can go down that rabbit hole. The danger of doing that is you can bump up against, when you're on the teeter-tot of benefit versus penalty, you can fall down off the razor's edge, off into one side or the other, by being too penalized or having too much of an advantage. So that's based on the gaming group. Like some gaming groups is just like, well, whatever, take the blind fighting feat. I don't care. But then on the other hand, if you're blind and someone says, "Oh, there's writing on the wall." The DM, you can't read it. And then you go, so he goes back and forth, as opposed to saying, like, my contention is, yeah, like Edris Martin says, "Yep, it was a mess." My again, a lot of times we as role players, we get into the weeds a little bit too much, as if role playing games or the game that we're playing is a simulation, and it isn't. It is a it's not a simulation of the real world antics of people doing things. It is a cinematic descriptor of the things we're doing. It is not reality. So a blind monk character, just make up a character and just say that they're blind. That's all you do. I want to play a one-armed fighter. Okay, just all right. You're done. You don't need to have any rules for that. Just do it. Gaster Two Soul says, that's oddly miraculous. Anyways, I got some new dye down at the Barnes and Noble. Probably put me back $25. Got some new dice? Okay. No problem. He says, I do like the idea of a group of enemy NPCs surrounding the blind monk, and they're like, ha, he doesn't stand a chance. He's blind. And then the monk kicks ass, one of the NPCs and the nads. You know what? That is an interesting, okay. If you really want to embrace the cinematic feng shui wuxia type of, like, beating ass on a bunch of NPCs, you gotta throw in some minions. You gotta throw some minions in. It's it is because in order to get the whole, like, punch, kick, trip feel, and I've brought this up before about the game Feng Shui. It's like, yeah, like Gaster says, no one overestimates the blind monk. They always underestimate the blind monk. It's always it's usually, they're usually blind and or maybe a little bit older, or sometimes they just look very unassuming. Tired Eat Sleep says, time for cultist number 5,679 to make an appearance. Yep, to get their ass beat. The cultist gets pushed out there, and they're like wearing like a little sign with the number on it. Like, was I supposed to do something? All of a sudden, they start getting their ass beat. Like, wait a minute, hold on. I didn't even finish my ritual yet. That's the point. Cameron says, I've wanted to play a blind samurai who sees through their echolocation by whistling songs with sharp ended notes. There are human beings that can do that. That's really cool. I was thinking he would whistle a lot of jazz. No, I like that. As a matter of fact, there is a song that sounds, it's a fluted whistle from that plays throughout the Kill Bill movies. That really makes me think about that quite a bit. So one of Gaster Two Souls says, Barbarian says, okay, so how do we defeat the boss? Blind Monk says, hold my ritualistic incense. Yeah. Hold this back. Right? Yeah, that's the one thing about the classic monk is always the unassumed nature of the monk, as opposed to, like, the beefy barbarian or like the armored knight. You have this individual that's like, nah, I just got a stick, I got a staff, don't worry about me. I wonder if there are even monsters or creatures, spirits that would be teaching some of these martial arts to people in the mortal realm, maybe. I'm thinking of whirling dervishes and ifrits and jinn, or I'm thinking of, like, places that deep in the swamps or mountainous regions or something like that. Like, I could imagine there being deep in the mountains, there would be like dwarves or like deep gnomes or something that have like these you don't you don't go to be invited. They come and invite you because of your skills or talents, and they it's like they recruit you, or maybe even they go to your parents and recruit you as a child or something, into these specialized combat, I don't know, enclaves or something. Yeah. Gaster Two Souls says the monk is just a pure embodiment of the hold my beer trope. Yeah, yeah, there's quite a bit of that. Like, hey, you said the same thing I said up front, man. Dante Unknown says, us. Sorry I'm late for my favorite love hate class. Yeah, like I said, it's very difficult because of the semantics. It's the rose by any other name is still a rose. It's the word monk has so much baggage attached to it that it's very, you have to like cut through the skin, peel the skin off, get down to the framework of it, and then bring it back in. So like yesterday, I'll think I will bring up a bunch of like worldly, if I can recall enough of them, there are a number of world combatants who don't represent monks but have combat abilities on their own. So I would put in, I would for let's go with the Euro theater for right now. I'll put in fencers would be um, fencers to me would be martial artists. Now I'm not talking about the white clad. I'm not talking about Olympic fencing with the white outfits and the pointy swords, which is just like a little needle, and you tap the person on the chest. I'm talking nearly Three Musketeers style with the rapier and dirk. I'm thinking of indigenous peoples and knife fighters, and I'm thinking of Aztec warriors and you know, the jaguar spirits and such. Yep, swashbuckler types very much in there. Musketeers, cavaliers in a historical sense. I think would very much fit into the martial arts scheme. My brain is going around the world right now. I guarantee there are plenty that are Mongolian style horseback riders that could um, run, jump, flipping off of their very fast horses, combating each other on the battlefields as well, and being very good with ranged weapons. Maybe in Dungeons and Dragons they don't, you know, monks don't have archery, but you know, javelins and darts and things of that nature. Yep, parkour thieves like Aladdin would absolutely fit in there. The whirling dervish, scimitar wielding Bedouin warriors absolutely fit into that realm as well. Um, yeah, cameras, tomahawk fighting, tomahawk like knife fighting, fighting with like um, obsidian, bone, horn knives and such. Yep, yeah. Gaster Two Souls is, ooh, we're talking about Jin. I've made my own NPC that's a Jin. Gray, the Jin of fireless smoke. It's all right. He's talking about a crazed swordsman. Yeah, I mean, and here's another thing too. If someone really wants to, Tired Knee Seeps is saber juggling. That's some artistic stuff. I know uh, someone. If you want to go to YouTube and find they are known as sword dancers. They're not necessarily scimitars. Maybe they're called like um, shotels or I can't remember the type of blades, but there are people who are very far Eastern European sword dancers. Falchions, I think. Yeah, they're where they use either two weapons, two blades, or a double bladed weapon, and they do these really intricate dances and such. They represent martial artists as well. Um, yep, the Kopesh from the Egyptian version. Yep, are would absolutely fit into that realm. Riding and jumping off the backs of like camels and such, or elephants and whatnot. There are, as a matter of fact, it you could even have a one-off where um, the a circus where all the performers are monks. Oh, hell's yes. Hell, you could, well, you could probably pick almost every character class as a member of the circus, which would be kind of cool to do that. That'd be kind of a traveling troupe of entertainers and whatnot. Everybody has to pick some kind of performance or entertaining skill. Sorry, that squirreled a little bit, but the a one-off for a monk in a Dungeons and Dragons world as well could be um, a drunken boxing clown. Got your nose, literally. Yeah. The Oh man, that actually sounds pretty cool. But I could imagine like an old, like let's say a knight who's retired, who's been on like 5 campaigns and whatnot, takes a young squire under their belt, and then unbeknownst to the knight, teaches the squire such skill that the squire becomes a monk based off the skills of the knight who's learned through how to fight through their time. Like, in other words, I'm thinking that a monk could also develop spontaneously through the machinations of being taught maybe a number of different skills. Maybe a young person got taught a number of different skills from various people in their tribe or their city or their city state or something like that. You know, Dante says, I always considered Friar Tuck from Robin Hood as an actual monk that does monk fighter. He's got the shepherd hook as a staff. Yeah, yeah. And monks being cloistered away, who knows what the hell they're doing when they're to defend themselves against their enemies and such. And so yeah, who the I know the Friar Tuck, shaved bald spot in the back of the head kind of thing, is also a the Benedictine monk is also kind of a monk as well, although some would say they're probably more clerics than anything, even though they call themselves monks. But having them have some kind of ability to defend themselves, I guess it's just this idea of how do you reconcile like what they do, and I think we get too caught up in again with the details and the semantics, right? Like what does your flurry of blows look like? Are they doing backflips? Well, they don't necessarily have to, just because maybe you want them to, and that's okay. But a flurry of blows could just be someone using their weapon to strike someone multiple times, or the it's the jazz riffs as was mentioned above, like the the echolocation with the jazz. Maybe the jazz riffs are, as we've seen in plenty of movies, where someone like uses a weapon and then they also like will try to leg trip or kick someone or elbow someone or punch them with their fists or use the pummel of their weapon or sword or something, or knock someone against a hardened surface or something while they're fighting them. So you could describe it any way you want without changing the rules. And I think the description is on us to be creative in terms of putting the monk in the game. And of course, we're talking about monks, so we have to keep them in there. But no one's saying you have to have them. I think just the word itself is problematic when talking about so many other things. Oh man. Yeah, he says Friar Tuck, the Batman to Robin Hood's Green Arrow. Yeah, yeah. You didn't know it, but he was a badass. Yep. Oh man. Tired DC says, "Ha! Heavy metal monk. Weapon equals electric guitar. Flurry of blows equals flurry of headbangs." um, I don't know. There might have been one in Mad Max. Well, no, he was chained to the back of the truck, which was a shame. But oh well. Cameron says, I imagine if Benedictine monks actually had a secret fighting style, lords know that you don't want me to hit you with this smoking per aspergillum. What is that? Is that like a long pipe or something? Oh, or is it the dang? I don't know what it is. Put the sword down. Don't do it. Hell, they could probably beat your ass with a Bible or something. Wouldn't that be funny? Well, I tried to turn the other cheek, and now I'm gonna have to beat ass. Oh man, but yeah, we're gonna have to make some fun. But anyway, we come to the end here, guys. Thank you so much. Went a little long today, but yeah, listen, we all know that we have all of our tongue in cheek, our funny anecdotes and things, and we're tabletop RPG. I guess you could call this a podcast, long form, whatever. So yeah. In the Cadfael novels and TV shows, Cadfael fights with a staff sometimes for self-defense. Yep, stabs. Um, the martial arts that Dante and myself learned is Okinawan, and they were known to not have a standing army. All of their weapons were farming implements. So there is that. Maybe we'll talk about that tomorrow. Ooh. Yeah, we'll bring that up tomorrow as well. So, but anyway, guys, thank you very much for joining me. Uh, yes, I am eyeglassless for some strange reason. I don't know why my vision has gotten strangely. Maybe it's just my depth has gotten shorter. I don't know what it is, but anyway, everybody had no, 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 no. Thank you. Everyone have a great one. Thank you very much. Join me tomorrow. I will take care. Um, and the last thing, please like, share, subscribe, call to action, whatnot. Guys, have a great one. I'll see you later. Us. Bye. Oh, you guys are so funny.